Okay, hello and welcome, guys, to a special episode where we're talking about FSD. And I'm really honored to have a very special guest today, Omar, with Holmar's catalog. Omar, how's it going? And it's really awesome to have you here.
Yeah, man, the honor is all mine. Great to be here. This will be a fun discussion.
Yeah, so I did a recent episode about FSD, and you're one of my point of contacts for like FSD news on Twitter, just the progress of it. And
Mhm.
I've seen excitement, I've seen kind of disappointment, I've seen kind of the full spectrum,
Right.
and that's kind of
Mhm.
really what I wanted to get into here today. So why don't we start by tell us about your journey? You've had FSD for 5 months, I think it is, right?
Yeah.
So walk
Yeah.
us through,
So,
like, I'm curious, how were you chosen? How did it start? How far has it come? Just give us the rundown.
well, I was in the early access program testing some features like Smart Summon and that kind of thing before. So, I use autopilot a lot. Like, I have over, 75,000 miles on my 2018 Model 3, and probably like 90% of those miles are autopilot. So, I tested some features before. Um, when I saw John and some of the other guys get it a few days before I did, um, I was like, oh man, I really want this. And I think, I was just kind of like really, really dying watching their videos, like begging to try it just like publicly online. And then in the next batch or something, I just got an email that said, we're going to send you this beta build. That was about, 5 months ago, October 20th or so. So I've been using it since then. It's improved a lot. I was just using it today, um, just driving, and it's a beautiful day here in California. Looking at the scenery, listening to music, and it's just doing everything. And it's really, really relaxing and great. I'm really enjoying using it. Of course, it's not perfect, but it's really like pretty incredible. And if you've used autopilot, and you know how to disengage and kind of be able to predict kind of when it's doing something strange and you want to take over, you'll have no trouble with FSD. It's already, I think, really great here in California. By the time it's released, I think people are going to be really blown away. Like, wow, I cannot believe what my car is doing.
Yeah, it sounds like there's equal bits of like anticipation and like excitement, and this is the one thing I think has taken longer than people maybe expected, and
Hmm.
here we are a couple of months later. The button is you've been kind of tweeting about this,
Right.
and I like that
Yeah.
you've mentioned like everybody should take a deep breath. This is going to happen. Give them time, which kind of gets into. I was actually kind of surprised at how much they let
Mhm.
the early beta testers like share on social media. I kind of figured they'd be pretty mum about it. And it's for
Mhm.
this reason, like you don't want to rush something complicated. You don't want to have that kind of constant need to tell people again, we're not ready, again, we're not ready. As opposed to just like getting to the hard work of solving one of the hardest problems that humankind is facing right now, and let them kind of have a moment to themselves to figure it out. So yeah, so I mean, I was just kind of
Yeah.
thinking that there's a couple of things here that I think we can kind of start with. So I'll start with this. I've been not like really outwardly vocal, but I've been vocal to like my friends
Mhm.
about how much I've hated that they've raised the prices of FSD
Mhm.
without actually still having delivered it. So it's still a promise for a future thing. I'm confident they're gonna do some
Mhm.
incredible stuff. Like I think we all are, but $10,000 is a lot of money, and
Oh yeah.
the the reason I made this video that I did was there were people who I was speaking with who felt pressured from friends like you'd be dumb not
Mhm.
to get FSD for 10,000 because it'll be 20,000 soon, and you'll be making money on your robo taxi sitting at home on your couch. And I was just thinking like the level of crazy is
Mhm.
at an all-time high at this point, and we should all kind of like take a deep breath. So my first point was full self-driving is a Tesla term. It's not an industry term. It doesn't really mean anything. It's like
Mhm.
GM has Super Cruise. It doesn't go, Mach
Right.
1 without
Mhm.
afterburners.
Right.
It's just a marketing term. So
Right.
technically, FSD doesn't have to actually do anything more than their set of features, which I'm
Mhm.
sure they're going to deliver on. But I kind of felt like there was this. I think people thought that means like level 4 or level 5 autonomy.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
maybe we can just start by defining those. But level 4 and level 5
Yeah.
autonomous means there's no steering wheel, there's no pedals, there's no human intervention. The car can operate. Level 4 might not have, it'll have like a pre-flight checklist, and if everything doesn't work out, it'll stop and not run. Level 5 means no matter what you get in, you're going to get to where you're
Mhm.
going. So, I mean, do you think that FSD, what you're testing right now, do you think that turns into level 4, level 5? Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, definitely. So, I think people are right to be, um, how do you say it? Just apprehensive and just, people are really dying to try this. And there's definitely some frustration among people who have been waiting. I mean, some people bought FSD in like 2017, right? And, in some cases, like, they've already gotten a new car or something like that. So it's understandable that, I think there's a lot of anticipation and frustration, but it's not, they're not really bullshitting. And I mean, there's some people, I mean, I'm not really like going around telling everyone like, you need to pay $10,000 for this, I don't think like, it really depends on who you are. So for me, I love using this, even if it was just navigate on autopilot and it was never getting any more updates than that ever. I would still probably pay $10,000 on it. That's me. I do a lot of long distance drives instead of flying, and that really earns the value. On the other hand, you got one of my aunts who I told, get a Model 3 instead of a Lexus, and she doesn't have FSD and she doesn't want it. She doesn't care. She doesn't drive that much. She doesn't need to, be using autopilot for everything. And it really depends on who you are. I mean, long term, when the cars are really autonomous, it's really going to cost nothing, next to nothing to take an autonomous ride. So I definitely don't think that, everyone needs to buy this, but I think a lot of people are going to be really excited by what it is, which is it's a driver assistance system like autopilot. So this is, I think, pretty clear to most Tesla drivers, but it's not a level 4, level 5 system. It is a driver assistance system like autopilot that can just try and do the whole drive now, try and do right turns, try and do left turns. And many times it is able to do everything completely by itself with really minimal human interaction. So I am one of the few people probably who believes that in time, they're going to make it reliable enough that it will really be able to um, do driverless operation, do situations where you have no intervention drives over a very long period. I'm very bullish on what the future of this technology goes as the reliability increases. But to be clear, this is not going to be like some easy thing where they just ship an update in April. This is a long process, right? So it starts with getting this better driver assistance system that does all the driving on city streets. And it's going to take a long time, even longer than Elon says, right? You always got to like, Elon's an optimist, right? Everybody who has listened to Elon knows he's an optimist. So it's going to take a long time to get it to that level of reliability, but it's great. It's great to use today. And I think people are really going to like it and just be like, wow, I cannot believe my car did that, because it's a complete rewrite of autopilot that we know.
Yeah, really well said. I loved your tweet earlier today. You said that a full self-driving car is the ultimate luxury. And I was thinking
Mm-hmm.
to myself, yeah, there's nothing I'd rather have than the opportunity to sit back and do something else while my car is driving. And to your point about the the optimism and the fact that they're going to deliver on this. If there's one team around the world that I trust to really like progress this and move this forward as they've started, it's Tesla. So I think they're going to deliver on it. I think really what I wanted to kind of highlight was this fact,
Mm-hmm.
because I think robo taxi has become this like way overblown term, and people are thinking about.
Yeah.
I love that people are thinking about the future. That optimism for the future is what we had with the space race. SpaceX, I think, is at the
Mm-hmm.
forefront of getting people excited again. It's such an important thing, but at the same time, like we don't want to lose our minds about it. So we can kind of
Mm-hmm.
switch gears. I wanted to ask you next about Yeah, Jim says a chauffeur. Yeah, basically, imagine if your car was the chauffeur. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to switch gears. You and I were both on a Clubhouse chat with some industry experts on like the car sensor tech,
Hmm.
the sensor stack that you're going to need to achieve a level 4, level 5 of autonomy, arguably even level 3. And so the room was pretty split. The people were thinking, are we going to need LiDARs? Are we not? So that debate or that vote was like pretty much 50-50. There were some other considerations to kind of people talking about the efficacy of radar. So, what's your take? One of the claims that Tesla has is that your car comes equipped, and I remember reading this and thinking like, wow, that is a bold claim. They say your car
Hmm.
comes equipped with everything you need for full self-driving. Again, it doesn't say level 4 or level 5, it says for full self-driving, which is defined
Hmm.
by Tesla. So they're
Hmm.
okay to say that. But what do you think? What's your take on that, and what do you think is the future in terms of like the sensor stack for level 4, level 5?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is a hot topic right now in the autonomy industry, and pretty much nobody believes that Tesla can build a fully driverless car with the sensors they have. Whether you've got people from the industry, people from Waymo, people from just the general public, even Tesla drivers don't really believe it. They go, well, autopilot, it is great, but it's got a long way to go to be autonomous, and I don't know if I believe that my car can really be autonomous. Um, it's there's very few people who believe that it will be driverless, but I actually do. And it's kind of like in photography, they say the best camera is the camera you have, right? It's not necessarily about having the most high end camera with the best lens. If you've got a camera with you and you see the right shot, that is the best camera. And it's kind of a similar thing with autonomy. People are focusing so much on sensors, but they don't realize that perception is just the beginning, right? So if you can tell the computer exactly what's going on, let's say the perception system is perfect and it can give you every pedestrian, every car, every traffic light, it maps it all out perfectly with the sensors. That's still only step one, right? The hard part is then figuring out, how do I navigate this out of everything that's happening? What do I do? And what you really realize using this software is like the number of things that can happen in the real world is just so absurd. The real world is just so absurd. And like you can't even think of these situations that you're going to see every day. So if you can't think of it, it's really hard to program it. And I think that this is really the key, is just gaining real world experience. The best sensor suite is the one that you can get onto a car today and start seeing these real world scenarios. It doesn't have to be perfect. You actually don't need to see everything even perfectly to be able to drive pretty well. The key is really to be able to figure out what you need to do, and to be able to account for all these different scenarios. That's really how you get to driverless, because driverless is about a level of reliability. It's about, okay, this system works so well that we don't need the driver. And how do you achieve that level of reliability? Everyone driving around with their driver assistance systems with autopilot, and it just works. And at some point, it's like, hey, nobody's disengaging the system. It just works so well, we can remove the driver. So I think huge real world data is the key to the reliability you need for driverless.
Yeah, and that's where Tesla arguably is far ahead. So yeah, my personal take, and I've mentioned this in my video, is their current cameras are like 1.2 megapixel. So it's like a
Mhm.
1280 by 960 QVGA resolution camera, and that
Mhm.
was a really deliberate choice because that doesn't overwork your CPUs. It allows you to be able to analyze this data and label things at around 60 frames per second. So with their upgrade to hardware 3 and this 1.2 megapixel camera, they can monitor all their cameras at 60 frames per second, which really was one of the first things they did that made me think they're onto something, because anything lower than that and suddenly like the motion blur becomes very difficult to deal with, and there's just a lot of challenges with like just visual imaging. So that they have figured out. But my thought process was, you mentioned the best camera is the one you have, but in the future, like if we're going to define what level 5 means, or what level 4 means, there's going to be standards, and we haven't even made them yet. So the first thing is to say that our current Teslas, I think we're both Model 3 owners, have what you need for level 4 or 5 is crazy, because we don't even know what level 4 or 5 looks like. That'll be highly like a regulator question. Lawmakers will come together and figure that out. My hope is that they're standardized like federally, and we don't have like state by state where you cross the Nevada border to go to Las Vegas and the rules are different, and like that would be kind of a pain. But hopefully we can come up with like a set of rules that are needed. But my thought process was the camera suite is good. It's well positioned or well sized for how much compute power they have on their SoCs for their driving computers. But I mean, what's to say like the Cybertruck doesn't come with 2 megapixel or 3 megapixel cameras
Yeah.
at way more cores in their SoCs, and like dual cores or quad cores, and they beef everything up, because the first thing is they have to move up together. You can't just go with a high resolution camera without also having better sensors for night, low light visibility and stuff, and also for the compute power on the computing side. So I guess my kind of question was, what I've seen the dash cam footage, it's really low resolution. I mean, we have iPhones and stuff that shoot in 4 and 8K, so like we're used to a high resolution picture, and the Tesla footage looks very desaturated, which I think is also deliberate. I think it helps with like high dynamic range. You can capture more stops of light, so you get more kind of in the shadows and also in the really bright stuff. So they've made good calls, but like looking at it, I'm thinking. I remember playing back a little clip and thinking, okay, I'm going to move forward until this overhead freeway sign, I can read it. I can actually make it out. And
Right.
I had to play it for quite a while until I could actually read it. I'm going to do this experiment again, like with my own eyes, and see who can win.
Yeah.
Like, could the car or could I see better? Because I mean, we want our self-driving cars to be able to see better than we can, right?
Yeah,
What do you
totally.
think? You think their cameras are sufficient, or do you think there's going to be some evolution between now and level 5 when Tesla gets there?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of interesting points you made there. So, first off, with the regulators, I think that, there's kind of this question like, okay, well, are regulators going to say you need LiDAR for a level 5 system? This is legally required. And then, Tesla can't do it. I think very rarely in the development of new technologies do you see lawmakers prescribing how to accomplish something with technology. Usually lawmakers are very slow. The legislative process is very slow. And NHTSA has deliberately taken a hands-off approach, which is like, we're not going to tell you how to do self-driving. You guys go figure it out, and we will watch, and we will kind of make the rules in response to what's happening. So I think that regulators are smart enough to realize that, let's let these companies figure out how to get it done. And we will, right now there's really no rules. It's kind of a very lawless scenario, but I think in the future, the rules will be set to match kind of what's going on. Now, the second aspect is, these are shitty cameras, really, right? So a lot of people are saying, okay, well, how could the car drive with just these, shitty $5 cameras, essentially? Like, it's like a camera phone camera, how can this really be autonomous? And number one, I think there's a little bit of a misconception here, because the hardware 3 has a hardware image encoder on it, and when it's saving to the dash cam, it is significantly compressing the video footage. If you look at the video footage, you can see a lot of compression artifacts, similar to like what you would see on a JPEG, just like noise on the image. So the reason they do this is because they don't want to fill up your whole dash cam drive. If it was like 5 minutes and then your dash cam drive's filled up, that would not be very practical. So the images you see saved are significantly compressed, and there's only half of the cameras saved onto the dash drive, just to save bandwidth and to compress. So I think the cameras are actually significantly better than people can see from the dash cam drive, and that may mislead people somewhat. But the funny thing about neural networks is you actually don't want to give them too big of an image. Sometimes, like, with neural nets, people actually kind of like downsample the image down because it makes it easier for the neural net to process and, like you said, have the same frame rate and everything. Um, and again, I think people's thinking on this is kind of wrong. Instead of saying like, okay, we need to put all these sensors, just make the sensing just incredible. What people should really ask is, how shitty could the sensors be and still be autonomous, right? Because when essentially it's like the AI and the sensors. The more like a really advanced AI, like a human, could work with like fairly primitive sensors and know what to do. Um, so that's really like the strength of this AI is like these cameras are really all it needs. It can look at this and it can map out the whole world. Like when you try FSD beta, you will see that it actually works pretty well. As you're driving, it draws a bird's eye view of the whole street. It's incredible. It takes these 8 cameras, puts it into a neural net, and the neural net draws like a stick drawing of everything that's happening in the world around you. And like I've tried experiments where I've said, okay, I'm going to sit in the car and you, my friend, go walk around the car 360, right? And so you can see the guy walking around the car 360 degrees. And the car is fusing this all together with the cameras. So really, I think the answer to the question is like, yes, it is just kind of like this shitty camera driving the car, which sounds crazy. But the AI is so advanced, that's really all it needs. And even in like bad weather, rain, a lot of these cameras are actually behind the glass. They're behind the windshield. For the 3 front cameras, for the right and left turn cameras, they're behind the glass on the side pillars. So I think people will be surprised by like actually how well it works. And some people are misled by autopilot. This is a complete rewrite of autopilot. It works better in the rain. It works better in the fog. It really will stretch people's imagination for what they thought this hardware was capable of when they try it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So you made a couple of really good points there. To your point about you don't want to have too high of a resolution for these machine learning models, and you're totally right. Which anybody who has any experience in this industry, Omar, I think you're a developer as well. What's really interesting is the more detail you give something, it's actually a little bit more complicated. If you're nearsighted, you don't have your glasses on, and you kind of squint and you look around, you can make out a person like really clearly. But like the higher the resolution, the higher the pixels. Suddenly, it's like, is it a person? Is it a squirrel? Is it a like? Suddenly, it actually becomes a trickier problem. So I think there is a cap on it. Like you don't want like a 8K image. But my thinking is, I think we might end up, and I honestly think Tesla might even do it on a future model like the Cybertruck or something. Maybe
Yeah.
like 2 megapixel. There's going to be some sweet spot
Oh yeah.
where they hit it, for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think people get confused by the car has everything it needs for, full self-driving. That doesn't mean the car is never going to improve its sensors, right? So they're going to keep putting hardware 4. It doesn't mean that hardware 3 is going to stop working. A lot of people also get confused about this too, because the NVIDIA chip to the Tesla chip was a big upgrade because they added the custom neural net accelerator. But the difference between hardware 4 and hardware 3, it'll be backwards compatible. So they'll keep making chips every 2 years and it'll keep getting faster, just like Apple puts a new chip in every iPhone. And like you said, they'll put higher resolution cameras on the car, the best cameras that they can come up with. Hell, if LiDAR can really solve autonomy, then they'll put a LiDAR on the car. Even if it costs, $100,000 extra. So, you get a $200,000 Model S, but it's autonomous today because it has LiDAR. If they could do that, they would do it. They're not ideologues. People will kind of laugh at them. But hey, if it makes it autonomous, why the hell not? The reason they're putting LiDAR is not like some religious thing like, we worship the cameras. It's that it actually does not solve the problem. So they'll put whatever hardware they need to solve the problem. But, the really great thing is they've designed this software in a way like you put it on a 2021 Model 3 or a 2018 Model 3, it drives the car exactly the same. There's no difference. It is completely backwards compatible. And they'll keep making it better over time, but that's the real powerful thing is it works on all the cars from October 2016 to today.
Yeah, so So to your point about upgrading the sensors and stuff. So I think I agree with you. There's going to be some sort of like an upgrade suite that they'll offer, which again is why I took issue with that term that your
Mhm.
car comes with everything it needs for full self-driving, which seems really um, I don't have that kind of confidence as an engineer. Like I'm always thinking it's not going to work. It's going to
Yeah.
fail, So I typically come on that side of the fence. LiDAR, we'll talk about that in a second, I
Mhm.
think, in a major way. But I think that this ties into one of my other thoughts, which is why I'm really excited actually, is the subscription model, which I think is the correct way they should have always done this. I think
Yeah.
we all, as we use autopilot, are improving their models. So like all of us Tesla owners have been doing the free work of making all this possible and providing this data
Yeah.
for them to train their models with. So I always felt like that 10,000 was kind of a price gouge. To your point that you were happy to pay it, I really appreciate that because
Mhm.
really, if you're in a position where that's how you feel, somebody in Clubhouse mentioned for them, Tesla's FSD is like the ultimate Kickstarter. They are so happy to pay the 10,000 because they want Tesla to have the resources to, and I agree with that. If there's a company I want to have some extra capital to be able to do great stuff, it's Tesla for sure. But I think the subscription model makes more sense because to me, I think what we will end up happening when we have level 4 and 5 is all of our cars don't have a subscription because I think it'll keep upkeep to keep it on the road. If you think of it like an aircraft versus this, the aircraft software you write it and it's done. You don't iterate on it again. Maybe you'll upgrade it in 5 years and all this, but it's kind of considered like mission complete. Whereas with full self driving, I think every 2 weeks you'll have an update to continually train and learn and that model will continue forth. So the best way, if you think about like what Photoshop has done or Adobe has done, we've all moved everything to subscription models, and the reason is you incentivize the developers to keep iterating, to keep improving, to keep our products refreshed and adding new features and stuff. It's the best way to move forward, I think, with software. And this, to me, feels like the right move for Tesla because now, if you're like a member, like my internet provider, they were like, oh yeah, you pay us every month way too much money. Here's a free modem because your modem is old. They're happy to upgrade my hardware because I'm a customer and I will be, for the
Right.
long term. So Tesla, I think, will buy themselves more opportunity to be able to say, here's a new hardware upgrade, and as they continue their expertise on the SoC side and kind of the custom silicon side, they're going to drive those costs down. It'll be interesting how the chip shortage this year will play out. Maybe we can talk about that in a little bit. That
Mhm.
does kind of concern me, but so far they haven't really shown any signs of slowing down. Um, so that all I think is probably the best for what they're doing. Now to touch on LiDAR, this one is funny. You actually seem more open to the idea of it here than on Twitter. And I mentioned this to you before we joined the call. On Twitter, I think the feeling that people have is if Elon says it, everyone just kind of starts to say it too, and it's
Mhm.
like LiDAR is dumb. It's like I don't know if LiDAR is dumb or we need it, to be honest. Like I think we could maybe solve it without it. Um, I I did 6 years as an aerospace engineer for the DoD, and the name of the game was always like backup, redundancy. What happens when something fails? It gets shot off. Someone crashes into this and breaks this, or a bird poops right on the front camera, sweet, and it covers all of them. Um, so to me, I've always said, look, solve vision. 100% vision is the key. Like, don't let LiDAR hamper you. If you're Waymo and you're tracking or you're trying to make LiDAR work, that's going to end
Mhm.
badly for you long term, I think, for the general solution. But if you have LiDAR, especially between 2018 and even now in 3 years, the cost have plummeted for LiDAR and even just the form factor and everything else. So if you could work it in as a redundancy measure, to me, again, if we're building the future we want, where cars are mad safe and nothing can get in the way of that, to me, it's having a little bit of redundancy. And maybe you never even touch the LiDAR. Maybe as long as everything from the cameras is good, you don't even ignore what the LiDARs are saying. But then some X condition that I'm not smart enough to predict right now comes up. I mean, would you be okay if that was the solution and Tesla had a little retrofit or something and they changed a little?
Yeah.
Would you be opposed to
So,
that?
well, you know, I'm not opposed to. Well, first, let me say, on the subscription thing, I completely agree. I think the important thing to emphasize for people is like $10,000 is a lot of money. Like, what do you buy for $10,000? You know, Can you think of a piece of software you've paid $10,000 for? No. Can you think of even a laptop or something? No. Like people don't buy
My
anything
first
for
car.
$10,000. Yeah, exactly. Like people, you could get a used car like for $10,000. So, it's a lot of money. And if someone doesn't want to spend $10,000 to buy FSD in full, they're not crazy. The key thing to emphasize here is that everybody is going to get to use FSD, whether they paid for it or not, um, because all of their cars support it. All of their cars have the hardware to do it, to run this software. So Tesla's going to price it in a way, whether it's the monthly subscription that they're launching, in Q2, which is coming right up in a couple weeks. Or per mile pricing, per trip pricing. Like if you can call a robo taxi for a trip, you should be able to call your own car for a trip. So I think the pricing model is going to really be in such a way that everyone can access it, and I think everyone is going to be really happy whether they paid for FSD in full or not. And as for the LiDAR, it's not that I'm opposed to LiDAR. If LiDAR could really solve autonomy, if LiDAR could enable Tesla to make an autonomous car today, I would be the biggest LiDAR champion. I would be like, yes, let's do it. Let's make autonomy happen. Let's save lives. Let's add the redundancy. The reality is that I am pretty sure that it is not the solution. And people are dramatically underestimating what you can do with cameras and computer vision and the amount of redundancy you can achieve just based off having multiple cameras and multiple neural nets cross-checking each other and radar and ultrasonics as a backup. Like, what kind of bird is going to shit on all 8 cameras at the same time? Even if he blocks all 3 cameras, you've got the 2 side cameras, which can position you in the center of the lane. And you've got the back camera too. And you really only need one to like pull over or something and then let another robotaxi come and pick you up and you can follow it in convoy mode or something like that to a service center. So I think people are going to be really surprised. And in a strange way, LiDAR actually slows you down because it slows down the deployment, the amount of cars you can have on the road, the amount of data you can collect, and you end up leaning on it too much and not solving what you really need, which is a breakthrough vision system that can really do everything. I mean, maybe if the vision system is perfect and LiDAR costs go down to $50 and it's like, hey, we can add some redundancy, maybe at some point in the future. But the thing is, I don't think that it is going to, at any near point in the next 5 years, be worth the trade-offs. Which is to say that cameras and radars and sonars and the next generations of these hardware are going to get you to a really high reliability level, higher than a human. I think it'll be able to be like a race car driver and still be pretty reliable. So I just don't see it happening. I mean, the other day I was just on FSD in San Francisco, and there was a Waymo also driving on the same street on the right lane as me. And all these LiDARs were on the car and they were just spinning. And, I was just looking at it and just my gut as an engineer is just like, this is wrong. Like, this is wasting so much power just spinning these things. I've been in one of these cars. It's not like, I was kind of afraid before I got in the Waymo. I was afraid that it would really be just incredible, that it would be so good and I would be forced to really reconsider my assumptions about LiDAR and say, you know what, maybe LiDAR really does make it better. No, it actually doesn't. It was still doing the same things, like kind of stopping, when it didn't need to. And it was a similar feel to autopilot. It couldn't get picked up everywhere. It couldn't get dropped off everywhere. Trying a car with LiDAR made me really realize that, like, no, this is not the silver bullet. This is not the magic ingredient. And it's funny that, I don't know why, this is really just in the public's mind, but I think time will tell that it's really all about vision.
Yeah, I think the people who like LiDAR really appreciate the fact that there's a level of high fidelity that is unmatched. Like it's a really high definition signal that you get. But yeah, I'm not really sold on LiDAR either because you still need vision. It's only a partial solution anyway. But here's the analogy that I would use, and this is how somebody I was speaking with recently framed it. They said, you know, when we're chasing down a vaccine for COVID, for example, right? And one lab says, hey, you know, we're onto something. We should have it shortly. We don't go, all right, everyone, that's it. Go back
Mhm.
to your children and enjoy your lives. Like, we got it. Like, no, we have as many labs working on this as possible because the reality is, like, especially in biology, you never know how it might progress. Like, maybe one lab, their solution doesn't scale as nicely. Maybe one lab, it worked, but when they scaled it up, it didn't work. A million different things. So the more diverse, different groups of scientists you can have work on a problem, the better. I'm a firm
Yeah.
believer of that. That's why I'm
Yeah.
not ready to write off hydrogen. I don't think hydrogen has any place in like in personal
Mhm.
transit. That's absurd. But
Yeah.
yachts and airplanes, I don't know. But I want people
Yeah.
working on it. I want people working on hydrogen.
Yeah.
Same thing kind of goes for LiDAR. So I think my take is you've been in Waymo. I know some people who've been on some
Mhm.
Waymo rides. Today, I don't think there's some like clear advantage to either system, but I kind of like the idea of both like teams of engineers working on both sides of this and
Yeah.
knowing that eventually maybe we get all the goodness and all the lessons learned and stuff. Because what ends up happening when you have engineers is you'll find an approach like Elon has his blinders on. Like he's working on one problem. He's not thinking about it from the other perspective. And same goes for other people. Like Waymo is not thinking about it from Elon's perspective. So I kind of like the idea that we let smart people go to work and figure out what you find out. And then the clear winner is going to emerge. Like you can't hide it at some
Yeah.
point. Like if computer vision is the clear winner, all the guys that have invested in LiDAR it's going to be evident. There's going to be no debate
Yeah.
about it. It's going to be clear.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you said that really well. I love that Waymo is, you might not realize it from, like there's a lot of difference between like what you'll joke about and what you'll say.
You give them
And
a hard
what I
time
really,
on Twitter, at
yeah,
least.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I give them a hard time, but it's all in good fun. I really, really actually love what they're doing. I mean, they were the pioneer of this. And I love exactly what you said. It's important, we can't all assume we're right all the time. So it's important that people are working on this and doing the best they possibly can. And if it does end up being that there's some advantage there, it's great that they're working on it as engineers. And also, I think I really love that Waymo has pioneered. I mean, they're running the first driverless service. So just an enormous amount of learnings there from actually operating a driverless service in Chandler and letting people use it and dealing with the regulations and learning all the stuff that goes around with that. The thing that I really am focused on is scale. I think it's all about scale. So one driverless car. I mean, so there isn't one autonomous car in the world right now, not one. And what do I mean by autonomous? Autonomous to me means you can take this car, you could drop it anywhere, pretty much. Let's say anywhere in the United States to make it simpler, but really anywhere in the world, you should be able to drop this car and it's able to drive. And pretty much in any condition, it's able to be safe. Maybe it pulls over if it needs to, but pretty much any time of day, any weather condition, any place in the country, you should be able to take this car and say, okay, go drive, and it can drive. That's what autonomous means to me. And nobody has achieved this yet. But even let's say someone achieves it tomorrow. Let's say Waymo says, you know what? We have solved autonomy. We now have this car and it can work safer than a human anywhere in the country in any weather condition. This is ready to go. Well, even if they did that tomorrow, one driverless car is not going to change the world. You need really millions and millions of driverless cars. You really need probably on the order of like 100 million. We've got 7 billion people on this earth. So you're really talking about hundreds of millions of cars that are needed. So this is the key, is how do we get hundreds of millions of driverless cars? And this is the big problem with LiDAR. You got to redesign the whole car, with the vision system, you can really just bolt it onto any car. Like I could take your old, 2010 Toyota Camry, and I could outfit it to be autonomous with cameras. I mean, a lot of cars already have cameras all over the car. So you look at what George Hotz has done with Comma. He sells this $1,000 system. You can go get a Toyota Corolla, just any old car, a Honda, whatever, and you can put his system in there. You can install OpenPilot on it, and it'll just drive the car. It's basically basic driver assistance, but it'll drive the car. And this is what I really like about using commodity sensors, using vision and radar as opposed to LiDAR. You don't have to redesign the car. You don't have to start from scratch and start making hundreds of millions of cars. I mean, you saw like with the ramp of the Model 3, how long that takes. So ramping, a Waymo car or something, it's going to take a long time. A lot of people are going to die waiting for it. So if you can have a system that can scale, that is a really powerful thing. To take it back to your vaccine analogy, you've got the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, which require heavy refrigeration, right? And then you've got some other vaccines, like I think, the Johnson & Johnson, that have less requirements in terms of, needing refrigeration and one shot and that kind of thing. So someone might say, okay, well, these vaccines that need to be stored at sub-zero temperatures are great for like the United States and Europe, but what about vaccinating Africa and like a lot of these lower income countries? If you don't vaccinate the whole world, nobody's safe because people travel around in the modern age. So you really need to vaccinate the whole world. And it's kind of like that thing where, okay, we've got this vaccine that works, but we've got another vaccine that's more scalable. And I think when it comes to autonomy, scale really matters. It's not, Waymo has 600 cars. They need to make hundreds of millions. So there's a big gap there. And LiDAR is holding people back, not only with the sensors and how expensive they are. And if a rock hits it, you got to get it repaired and you got to redesign the car. And you need a ton of computing power in the trunk. It takes up the whole trunk to process all these 3D point clouds. It's a lot of requirements that slows down scaling, and scaling is what's key.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. To your point about being able to use cameras on even old tech without having to do any kind of retrofitting, the scale of LiDAR has come down significantly. There's LiDARs in kind of the frontal areas of cars. It's not this big dish on the top of a car. I think Waymo's LiDAR is like ultra high definition mapping, which is for literally for mapping. And then the actual commodity car LiDAR would just be to like a camera in your car versus like a 100 megapixel sensor to like capture the world. So there is a chance that they could continue to do that. They're completely different technology.
And you have seen Lucid and others say they're putting LiDAR in their car.
Yeah, in the front. How they're going to lean on it or how how it factors into their approach is to be determined. But that kind of was my argument, is like, throw what you got in there and see what sticks or see what emerges from the noise. And also talking about the scale, I'm a big fan of Shark Tank, and I love the ideas where somebody will come in and talk about how they have this better zipper, and their plan is to like become the biggest jacket maker, and the guys are like, are you nuts? Like you're competing with Patagonia and REI and every one of these companies. Like, license your zipper to the guys that already make 1 million jackets a year. So to me, the self-driving tech it's starting to emerge as iOS and Android. Like Tesla is iOS, everything's in-house, everything is there. And right now they're far ahead because who else has 1 million cars and nearly 1 million cars on the road? But my thinking is that eventually, because if like Cruise is building this car, it's like a Bolt, it's like a customized Bolt, right? Waymo has these ridiculous minivans you always make fun of, and I agree with you. Like, if you're going to have an autonomous vehicle, why would you make it a minivan? But
well, I think they have other vehicles too. They got like a Jaguar I-Pace and stuff, so they got some nicer looking vehicles coming, but it's a lot of sensors.
And to your point, there aren't many of the I-Paces out there. Most of them are this Pacifica or whatever it is.
Right.
But I think the end of the day, what we're going to have, you mentioned Comma. So, George Hotz and his team with Comma really interests me because that's literally the Android approach, right? It's an open source platform. So let's say Rivian or Lucid or somebody else, maybe one of the Chinese makers, comes out and says like, we're a little behind on this on this self-driving race, we're going to use open pilot, and we have our cameras. We're going to feed it in. It's more complicated because, like Tesla, for example, with every camera in every car, they know exactly the height, the focal length of the camera, so they can project, and because all that changes with every car and their different approach. And
Right.
I don't know if you watched that Neo presentation. They're
Mhm.
claiming to have 8 megapixel cameras, which to me sounds absurd because the compute load to run in real time would be like astronomical. I don't think they're that far. I don't think they're nearly
Well, they
at a
probably
position
want to
to.
compress it first or something. Yeah.
There's got to be, yeah, but even that has to happen in real time. So it's a weird
Mhm.
choice for sure. But um, I think Open Pilot could emerge as one of these things, like literally like Android, right? One of the
Mhm.
arguments I made too was people saw the iPhone and thought Apple won. Who's going to buy Nokia? Who's going to buy the Windows, the
Mhm.
ridiculous Windows phones? But Android emerged like a year later. Um, Technology has that way. You put like a prize out there and say, this is like $1 trillion prize. Like engineers are going to get to work. Like companies are going to spring forth to try to tackle this thing. Now, as far as who's in a good position around, I think we could probably debate that. But um, like if Cruise has made some moves I think are kind of interesting. Mobileye is a company. I don't know if you followed very much.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they're in like hundreds of vehicles today. I don't think they're
Yeah.
doing the entire Tesla move. They're not doing the
Mhm.
stealth driving and kind of data collection.
They are trying to
But
do it in Israel, actually. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So I
They
mean,
have a vision only system too. Definitely one company to watch.
yeah,
Intel owns
and
them. Oh,
and Intel owns them. So I mean, I don't think you want to go with an x86 architecture. So Intel maybe
yeah.
needs to license that out to some ARM maker, which is a bizarre move. But talk about a company that knows what they're doing in that space to be prepared for it. So that's an interesting move, Open Pilot. So I really think what's going to end up happening is Tesla will really be the flag bearer. They're going to set the benchmark, but we're going to have these licensing plays. And what's interesting with that, to your point about the lead, if I'm just making this up here, let's say Lucid and Rivian and GM and a couple of other companies decide to all like ditch their own proprietary things that they didn't pan out, and they're all using Open Pilot, and they're code contributors and they're writing code and they're adding features and improving models and all that kind of stuff. Suddenly, the number of cars in the road that some other platform not from Tesla is using could grow into the tens of millions very quickly. And I predict in the next 2 years that's what's going to happen. We're going to see probably Mobileye, maybe Open Pilot, some other players emerge as a licensing play. So I don't expect
Yeah.
Ford to figure out autonomy. I just don't think they have that skill set. They don't run a Silicon Valley type of software company where you're, continuous integration and see, all the buzzwords, but
Yeah.
they're not running agile and they're not having
Right.
2 week validation cycles and stuff. They're not going to pull this off, I don't think, and they shouldn't. That's
Yeah.
not really a
Software isn't in
strong.
their blood.
It's not in their blood, and so why go after that? So I think
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. Yeah.
so. And by the way, Brooke Chen just says Tesla could also be a license play. So I
Mhm.
actually think that's exactly when people, if you've been following like the ARC projections for like robo taxi centric stuff, I think that's all absurdly ridiculous. I don't place any of Tesla's inherent value on any of that. For me, it's the cell lead. Like they're just in a position to make millions of cars, which nobody else is.
Yeah.
And two, like Brooke mentioned, what's to keep Tesla from going? Okay, well, we make the best EVs, they're the most efficient, the best range, and they're all self-driving. And now we're going to turn around and license our self-driving tech to all you guys that are way behind and clean up on that side. Because now you don't even have to build cars; you're just licensing software. Talk about trading at multiples and being worth 10 trillion or 15 trillion dollars. That's how I think Tesla does it. Far more likely than um, robo-taxis, especially the next couple of years. What do you think about
Yeah.
that?
I think the idea that Tesla is, going to be the only company that is able to build autonomous cars, I think is off base. There's going to be a lot of different players in autonomy. There's going to be your iOSs and there's going to be your Androids and there's going to be your Windows mobiles, who just die out. And I mean, I think Mobileye is a player to watch. I think, Comma is a player to watch, although, they're kind of interested in just going kind of directly to the consumer rather than even, working with the manufacturers at all. So, I mean, you could really debate for a long time who's going to be the players that survive in the autonomy industry. And the answer is probably like some people were not even thinking of. I mean, Elon himself last night said he expects to maybe, take a quarter of the robotaxi market. This is going to be an enormous, enormous market. Um, and it's going to be diverse. In 10 years, autonomy is going to seem easy. Pretty much everybody will have autonomy. When we're talking about this retrospectively in the year 2030, it's going to seem like old news, the same way that a phone that runs apps is not something we talk about like, wow, look, my phone runs apps. No, every phone runs apps, right? So in 2030, it's going to be old news. In this decade, there's going to be huge differences between what different autonomous systems do. And this is going to be the most important factor in choosing your car, I think, is going to be what the system is and which one do you like to use. Um, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, software is going to be the big factor. And it'll be pretty much, there won't be that much difference in 10 years. But for this decade, there's going to be huge differences.
That's a really good point. It's something I've mentioned as well about this is going to be a commodity in 2030. Every car will self-drive, and if it doesn't, those companies are going to be extinct. You're not going to remember them.
Right.
And the ones that figure this out, license the right tech, will be around.
Yeah, exactly.
So really, it's right now we're kind of in the middle of the battle, but the long term picture is going to be. But I actually do think that there might still be like a monthly subscription to keep your car self-driving ready, which means continuous integration with software updates and stuff, and potentially like sensor upgrades or whatever has to happen to keep yourself certified. But there's going to be some sort of a certification body who says, this is what is required for level 5 autonomy. If you're going to make a car that doesn't have a steering wheel that the user is not going to drive, it has to meet these requirements. Joe Kim is dogging me pretty hard, saying that I don't know anything about AI, and I doubt I'm doubting the hardware. Which I get this all the time. I knew I would get it. It's kind of fun. I don't think. And he's telling me about where to go learn from about AI. Well, I don't think Joe's still understanding my point about this is that this isn't just an AI problem. This isn't just a software problem. There's a lot more to it that goes into this. But as far as
yeah, I think there'll be like a driving test for autonomous cars, similar to like what we make 16-year-olds do today. There'll be something like that for companies too.
I actually mentioned that in my video. Joe seems to think you're the greatest thing, though, so you're doing great. So
a lot of experts on the internet,
There are. Oh man, there's so many. Experts
everybody seems to have an opinion about autonomy.
No doubt about it.
Everybody's got their opinion.
I mentioned that on my channel. I actually think there's going to be exactly that, a driving test. Imagine like to get qualified. We go through crash tests. You crash into this, and we'll give you a rating, and that same sort of thing. We'll take your car. We have a loop. We'll put it through, and we'll find out like when it reported it read that sign, when it did this. There was a kid that ran through. When did it react? And it'll have a pass, no pass. And as long as your car's pass, then the 2025 Model 3 is a certified FSD 5, autonomy level 5 kind of a car. I think that's going to happen. So it doesn't.
And I think it's going to be a way harder test. It's not going to be like this easy test that we really give humans. I think they're going to have, fake kids running through. They'll probably have a car that just kind of rams into you from the side and you have to like avoid it, and just really difficult stuff like that, because you only have to test one car and then all the cars are certified. So I think it'll be a much more excruciating test. Humans will have trouble passing it, but it'll be kind of standardized, and it'll be like fair game for anyone. Anyone who wants to do it, just pass the test and you're good to go.
I totally agree. And it'll be brutally difficult. And I think part of why you have to make it that way is we as humans are incredibly irrational creatures. We have planes that can fly itself today. Like a self-flying airplane is a really easy problem. You don't even need a machine learning model. It's very deterministic. You can just write a bunch of if-else statements and get that done. So the self-flying plane, we already have it. But we as people, we insist, I better have two dudes with pilot hats on in that cockpit. And that's really what it comes down to, is like we like that feeling of there's a person involved, even though like the plane can probably respond faster than the pilot could. So we have to not just like solve the AI problem. We have to convince people that our cars are safe, because now if I'm an old school guy and I've got my old car and I'm seeing people without steering wheels flying around the road, like, am I going to feel comfortable? Am I going to write my senators or my lawmakers? So and the way you do that is by showing them, like, here's how cars, here's what they have to do to pass. I can guarantee you,
Yeah.
you would have failed all day. So these cars around you are safe, and here's how we do it. That's the sort of, if somebody mentions that they're worried about the certification bodies, I agree. There's going to be some challenges there. I still maintain Tesla's well positioned. They're better positioned than anybody to eventually get certified. But I think the question is about, like, things we've talked about. If everything they
Yeah, I
have
mean,
today,
you
or
would want them to be able to really pass the test with flying colors. And I mean, I think this is really true. You know, people are irrational creatures, and how do you convince people? I think someone did a survey. They asked people, I think it was like AAA or something like that. You know, would you feel comfortable riding in an autonomous car? And people were like, no way. You know, the vast majority of the general public, like more than 50%. So, and even in 10 years, there's going to be some people, you know, there's still some people who use Blackberries. And there's going to be some people who are like, I'm not getting in a self-driving car. You know, I've been driving myself and I'm going to keep driving until I die. You know, there's going to be people like that. But I think you can start to convince people slowly over time. And this is why I really like kind of Tesla's approach of launching this as a driver assistance system. So really this year, a lot of people who have Teslas are going to get this software in the United States, and they're going to start using it. And they're going to say, okay, take me to pick up my kids from school, take me to my friend's house, whatever. And it's going to do the drive mostly by itself. And there will be interventions, you know, maybe it'll, get stuck behind a car or something, they'll take over. They'll ultimately have that control. If it starts to do something scary, they can take control and have that peace of mind that I'm holding the wheel and I'm driving manually. And then slowly over time, it'll get better. It won't happen all at once, but you know, it'll be 10% better in one update and 10% better in the next update and 10% better until slowly that guy who's using autopilot's like, you know what? I've been driving all year and I haven't taken over once. And that, I think, is what's going to give people the confidence to be able to get in the backseat of a driverless car is, hey, I've been getting in this same brand car for years and it's been driving me around pretty much flawlessly. I now feel confident to get drunk, sit in the backseat, and trust that the car is going to get me home in one piece.
and as soon as the police agree with that, and I'm not going to be, I'm okay to do that,
Exactly.
they'll do it. Exactly.
Exactly.
That's a really good point. It comes. I remember when my parents first, I showed them a Tesla and I put it in autopilot. My mom, like, freaked out.
All
But by the
right.
third time and the fourth time, suddenly it was kind of quiet and she wasn't really even noticing. It happens quick. I think that adjustment period happens really quickly. But it will take a little
Yeah.
bit of time. Here's another question I
Yeah.
didn't get to in my video that I want to ask you a question about, which is, I think there's like 4 million truck drivers in America. Another 4 million people do like Uber and Lyft. They drive taxis. There's food deliveries up in a major way. We have USPS and FedEx and now Amazon drivers. Let's call it like 10, 15 million people. When we have full self-driving cars, those jobs will be the first to go. Even if you and I are still using FSD and we have to intervene and stuff, those trucks are going to be figured out because the cost savings to these companies will be dramatic. So part of me, and one of my commenters mentioned that the states where a lot of these trucking companies are registered, there's like typically some states that are more famous, better for tax reasons and stuff. Those companies are going to lobby in a major way to I mean, my point is, like, there's
Yeah.
so many things that get disrupted with this. Have you
Mhm.
thought much about what happens to the jobs, and
Yeah.
what do you
Yeah.
make about
So
that?
this is a big thing to be concerned about. I mean, truck drivers are some of the last really good paying jobs that you can get without a college degree. So that's important. And also, a lot of people make their money driving. When I first got my Model 3, I did some Uber driving, not like as a full time thing, but just kind of like to give people a ride and show them what's up. So I've
I
like,
want to try that
kind of
too.
seen, yeah, it's actually pretty fun. I haven't done it really like since the pandemic started naturally because like, it's a risk, but it's just fun to give people rides around sometimes in your Tesla. And people like haven't seen it and they haven't seen autopilot. It's really great. So, we definitely want to be really, really cognizant of these people. We don't want to have a opposition from more groups. Like enough people already are trying to stop this from happening, whether it's Legacy Auto or the other autonomy companies or short sellers, that we don't really need to make any more enemies. But I think that this is actually not going to happen exactly the way people imagine it, where it's just like, okay, well, there's autonomous cars, let's fire everyone and just buy autonomous cars. I actually think there's an opportunity for these drivers to actually make a lot more money, counterintuitively, and actually have way better jobs while also getting paid more. So it's like, how does that really make sense? Well, now you've got one truck driver. So let's say you've got a truck and the value of the goods on this truck is, let's say, $100,000. And, the company says, okay, well, we can justify paying the truck driver, 2% of the cost of the goods on the truck, because ultimately the cost of shipping has to be priced into the goods. Let's say it's beer cans or something.
Right.
Okay, we can pay the truck driver $2,000 to transport this $100,000 load. That's 2% for shipping. That's a cost that our customers can bear and still buy this beer. Well, now, what if a truck driver can drive 5 trucks, right? So now instead of $100,000 worth of cargo, you've got $500,000 worth of cargo.
Is he operating it remotely?
No, like for example, you would be driving, the lead truck or operating it remotely. But I think at first what they'll want to do is have one person driving a lead truck and then a bunch of driverless trucks following it in kind of like a convoy mode.
Yeah.
And then for the Uber drivers, imagine now instead of driving one car, you can actually drive 10 cars. And instead of actually having to sit in the car and be in a dangerous situation, you can actually be on your couch and you can drive 10 cars. You're still giving it's your expertise. You're still saying, okay, I want you to go to Santa Monica and pick some people up. I want you to go to the port. I want you to go to the airport. There's some flights landing and you are heading to Compton. I want you to turn around and, go that way. Because I think you're going to get carjacked or something. Like people have this knowledge that they use as Uber drivers to figure out where to go and make money. And that'll transfer to being able to kind of like operate these fleets and provide that knowledge on a localized level. You're really just able to drive more cars potentially in a safer condition at home, more comfortably, and make more money because you're not limited to just collecting fares from one car. You can collect fares from 5 cars.
Yeah.
I mean, I always remember like
John L asks, so does that mean that 4 truck drivers are unemployed now and we just have the one where there used to be 5?
No, I don't think so. I think, well, first of all, I think there's going to be a lot more shipping. So just the market is going to expand. And it's just productivity increasing, right? So it's like, imagine you're a house builder and you can build 1 house a day. So, you're making a certain amount of money for building 1 house a day. Well, now imagine you have new tools that make you more productive. Now you can build 5 houses a day. It's the same thing with like driving multiple trucks a day. You're essentially becoming more productive, and becoming more productive essentially means that you can earn more. I always think of like the Luddites, right? So in the Industrial Revolution in England, everyone was hand weaving their clothes. And then somebody came up with like a sewing machine that could just really quickly sew together clothing way faster and really increase productivity. And all the people who were manually sewing clothes together, they had a riot and they went to the factory and they just burned down the factory. And they were like, fuck this, fuck, these sewing machines taking our jobs away. But, this was kind of short-sighted because ultimately it brought down the cost of clothes a lot, and the market for clothes. People ended up buying a lot more clothes because it's not something you have to spend a whole day on to make a shirt. You can make tons of shirts per day. And there's always you don't have the old jobs. for no time in our history have we been doing the same jobs that our fathers and our parents and our ancestors have done. It's always a different job, but on whole, there's going to be kind of, I think, more wealth creation, more jobs. Like this is something, definitely something to be aware of. Like this is definitely something like we don't want to like really ruin a lot of people's lives with this technology, but executed right, I think that it'll be really great for everyone. And the drivers will be really happy sitting at home, driving 10 different cars instead of one, making more money and just better, safer conditions than what they're dealing with Uber right now or truck driving right now.
That is a fantastic point. One of the things about my channel that I always try to do is stay positive, because I mean, I don't watch the news very much anymore. It's just too depressing. There's, the world,
Yeah,
we're all
man.
doomed. Everything, it's too late. So what I
Especially
like to
this
do is,
last year, it's not been good.
oh yeah, no, it's been. I can't remember the last time I saw good news, but I was kind of thinking about this. I love what you said. That's a really great point. We will fundamentally be more of a productive society, for sure. There was a company, Voyage. I don't know if you've been following Voyage. Was acquired by Cruise. I'm not really sure what they're planning to do with them. I think it was largely like kind of an acqui-hire. But
Exactly. Yeah.
one thing
I
that
mean,
they
Voyage
had,
was doing these retirement community shuttles.
yeah,
I don't know if
25 miles
Cruise
an
is going to
hour.
take that over or whatever, but I think they really wanted the team. There's a
Yeah,
lot of consolidation happening in the industry. Everyone and their
yeah.
mom was doing a self-driving company, and now it's really coalescing into a few big players. I think Waymo, Cruise, Mobileye, Tesla, and like maybe Comma, and like maybe some Chinese companies are like the big
I,
ones now.
I'm I'm with you. I think you're totally right. Yeah, so 25 miles an hour, little community cruisers. But the one
Yeah.
cool thing about their tech was what you pretty much just described. They've got some sort of like low latency communication protocol, probably maybe 5G based or something, maybe just LTE. But
Mhm.
they have a system where a driver can intervene. So this car that's not perfect, to your point, and maybe this is what level three looks like in the future. Maybe level three kind of morphs to mean it's not a human like in the car, but there's a human who could take over remotely or do something or provide input. But they have that tech where they could say, okay, there's a call, just kind of like tech support. There's a new call
Yeah.
coming in, and you grab your laptop and you connect, and you have a vision of the road, and you're able to like provide context or feedback and say no, no, ignore that, go this way, and kind of like help the car along. So people who do that could potentially uh, make make more money by doing that
Yeah.
from the comfort of their own home. And if we bring the cost down, this is one thing Warren Redlick talks about often, is if you have electric vehicles that go a million miles without almost any maintenance at all. By the way, what does that mean for jobs as well? We can talk about that on another
Right.
episode.
Yeah.
But you combine that with the fact that now you don't have a driver, the cost per mile of transportation becomes like not even BART could compete. Nothing else would be able to compare with just the comfort of going where you want to go with a robo taxi network. So if that day comes, like we'll be so much more productive. Suddenly, all these burdens or hurdles of getting goods shipped around uh, get removed. One of the things I'm again talking about Shark Tank, they talk about food delivery and stuff. It's so expensive right now that you'd have to charge so much money. It's not a good business model. That might change. Suddenly, a whole new slew of things that weren't really possible before become possible with this new model. Questions in the comment section related to what does that mean for the future of trains, right? Is it just better to have a bunch of like big lorry, 18 wheelers that do all the work and they can go point to point? They don't have to travel any fixed roadways. It's interesting. We're at a precipice of complete disruption on like five different fronts. I think we haven't even talked
Yeah.
about like insurance. If everyone's safe and cars aren't crashing, what are body shops going to do and what are insurance companies going to do? It goes on and on. Um, it's
Yeah.
fascinating, but I hadn't thought of it quite that way. That we'll be so much more productive. That potentially we're going to see improvements in cost of goods and just generally higher GDP, which means there's just more money for people to make.
Yeah.
Um,
Totally.
that's
I mean, I
interesting.
think
That's a
to the point you made about the Voyage shuttles, this is going to be something that like all autonomous cars have. If you see Waymos, if a Waymo gets stuck, they have an operator that can give a command and help the Waymo get out of that situation. So I think there is going to be that kind of fallback. It'll be rare. The car should be able to do most of it itself, but it'll be able to phone home and ask for help if it gets confused. Pull over and wait for instructions. So um, definitely, I think people's standard of living will increase. not just the drivers, but everybody. So shipping and energy are a factor in every single thing you've ever bought this year. Every can of Coke, every laptop, every pair of shoes, all of that was a little bit more expensive because they had to ship it and they had to pay gas, as part of that shipping cost. So really what people are going to realize is they can buy a lot more stuff because once these benefits come to fruition, and people will be able to, get more food, they'll be able to get more shoes, anything you want really, like people will be able to have more of it. And that's really what it's about. It's just like, standard of living increase. And then, you mentioned like trains and stuff like that. I think that it's really going to, I mean, if this all really works out as expected, it's really going to stretch our road infrastructure. And things like trains and stuff, I think buses will become less popular and will fade, in favor of kind of like more smaller individual options that can take you directly where you want to go. But the road system we have and the highway system we have, is going to be stretched if this works. Because, I mean, imagine you already have so much traffic with people in the cars. Well, now imagine if the car doesn't need to have a person with it. So not only do you have all these people on the road, but now you have all these robots on the road. So you're going to need a lot more roads, bigger highways, maybe tunnels. People are really going to have to rethink like a road and transportation system. And there's a lot of opportunity, I think, to innovate there. Maybe in some cases, like, they'll take off buses to make more room and adjust things. But autonomy is like designed to work on the road system we have today. But as soon as these cars start hitting the road, you're going to see the road system start changing. Right away, people are going to start painting the lane lines a little better, right? Because now when it's like a matter of like the car could get confused by the lane lines, they're going to make sure it's all painted well. It's all super easy for the cars to recognize. And they're going to optimize the whole thing. I think this is why Elon's even getting into the Boring Company, is he's realized like, okay, if this works out, there's going to be a ton of traffic and we're going to need to build a lot more roads and tunnels and bridges and everything just to support all the demand that people are going to have. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was muted. Actually,
Okay.
yeah, my apologies. I was just gonna say, I think potentially we might actually have less traffic. Really quickly, I just want to do a shout out for Aptera Reboot. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate you guys. They said one of the most grounded conversations about self-driving I've seen in a while. Please do part two. Yeah, I wanted Omar on because Omar is one of those thought leaders in the space. He's got opinions about all of it. So I'm happy to we should do it again
Yeah,
anytime.
man, anytime.
So I actually think there might be less traffic because you wouldn't have individuals like one person in a car like we have now, which is like the bane of all of our existences with traffic. But instead, I've also dreamt of like the ideal robo taxi is not like a Model 3 or like a normal car. Imagine like maybe a Model X with like falcon wing doors or something like that, but several of them and privacy in the middle where you have like glass separation and when you get in, you have your own little private pod. You have no idea who's around you. If you're traveling with like your significant other, you can put the divider down and you guys can see each other or not. And maybe you can transport 6 people at a time and nobody would even know. Their door would just open and close and they'd come in and
Yeah.
go. They'd have under seat storage and overhead storage or something. And we could potentially have a reduction of like, I'm thinking like 4 to 6x in that front. But as far as
Yeah.
new use cases, now suddenly you have these like robo taxis delivering Domino's pizza everywhere. Yeah,
Right.
whenever you have a new thing and it's affordable and abundant, new economies are gonna spring forth. So it's hard to predict that. I think maybe that Elon's Boring Companies better suited than we think they are even. But what
Yeah,
else
I mean,
about? Go ahead.
I agree. I think there's going to be both. So I think it's going to be like there's going to be like a total playground of interior design. Once the cars are really autonomous, it's going to be like really designers can be creative for the first time in a century to really imagine like what does the next generation interior of a car look like? And I think in many cases there are going to be like, you know, 6 people in a car sharing the car, and that'll reduce traffic. But at the same time, next to those 6 people sharing a car, turning 6 cars into one, there's going to be literally like a pizza oven driving around next to them,
Right.
making pizzas without a driver and just
Right.
delivering them. So
Oh, you're
it'll
saying
be a
not
little
even
bit of
just
both.
delivering it, but it's being cooked while it's on the road. Yeah.
Yeah, think
Why
about it.
not?
Nice hot
Yeah.
pizza coming to you like fresh out of the oven. That's going to be great. And you know, it's
Man.
interesting that like people have been trying to do this model forever. Like literally going back to the .com bubble, you've got like Webvan, right? And
Right.
all these companies trying to be like, oh, you get, you know, get it delivered to you right from the internet. And now you've got like Uber Eats and Postmates, but they're still fundamentally just like unprofitable and bleeding cash. So no one has really perfected this model in a profitable way. Like consumers have always wanted it. Like, yes, just bring me whatever I want, but nobody's ever been able to make it a valid business. And with autonomy for the first time, it could be possible.
Very, very good point. One thing I did mention, and I've heard several people mention it in the comment section. I think the last was Beach Crow. He mentions, what do you think about a vehicle to vehicle communication protocol for full self driving? If you had asked me, I actually think it does make sense, especially we were talking about things like sirens. Oh, we didn't really touch base on that, but do we need auditory sensors? Do we need to have cars that can hear and react to environmental sounds and things? But do we need a vehicle to vehicle protocol? Think like some sort of a medium range radio frequency that the FCC can clear and nobody else can use. That cars could talk to each other, even if one car had like critical failures of some systems, that it could actually like sensory fusion from other cars enough information to be able to like limp to the side or something. I think it solves a lot of our little issues, even just traveling closer together. One of the main reasons why traffic is bad is the guy in front of you is braking for no reason and you're getting frustrated because there's like 100 feet in front of him, but he's slamming on his brakes because all that kind of gets solved because these cars are all communicating together. So you have kind of a hive mentality. Think those drones that do all the patterns in the night sky. What do you think about that? You think that's part of the future?
Well, you know, obviously you can't rely on any of that information because you need to work with the cars that are already there. And, you know, if there's no cars on the road, you need to be able to work as well.
This is like long
But
term, like when, like
yeah,
10 years from now, when every car has like a standard, like a CB
I mean,
radio equivalent.
I think, I think in the future, um, the cars are going to be connected to the internet and they're going to be able to talk to each other over the internet. Every car is going to be kind of like uploading anything interesting it finds, and they're going to be communicating with each other. So let's say the car in front of you has to brake hard. Before it even hits the brakes, your car already knows that it's going to brake, and it started braking at at the same time. And I think that Tesla and these other autonomous companies are really going to like build this real-time map of the whole world. So imagine like somebody's doing you're driving by in your neighborhood and you see someone doing construction and they're building like a new, divider in the road. And you open Google Maps when you get home and boom, it's already on there like 1 second later because all these cars are driving through and like mapping in real time. They're communicating with each other and yeah, like even augmenting each other's sensors. Um, I think it's inevitable. Like right now, we're focused on like, okay, how do you read the traffic light? Do you want, vision, or what do you want to do? In the future, the car is really going to know about all of the traffic lights even before it gets there. It'll all be on the internet. So really, the internet is the future. People talk about like vehicle to vehicle communication. It's funny. The FCC actually sectioned off some spectrum, and they said, okay, here's some spectrum you guys can use for vehicle to vehicle communication. This was in like 1980 or something ridiculous like that, maybe 1990. And it literally just sat there for such a long time doing nothing that the FCC was like, all right, fuck you guys. Like, we're taking this spectrum back and we're giving it to the Wi-Fi guys. And the automotive industry just recently like threw a big fit about it. They're like, hey, what the hell? Like, we want to use that spectrum. And it's like, no, I think the Wi-Fi guys need it more. So I think it'll be the internet. I think there's going to be really, really high speed, low latency connections with 5G and 6G and 7G and satellite internet that is going to allow these vehicles to communicate. So it won't be, I think, some special protocol, but all these cars will definitely be internet connected, no doubt about that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not. Yeah, how would exactly to look, but there's just too many valuable things that you gain by doing it that way. That's a good point.
Mhm.
So let's we can kind of talk more. Actually, one thing I wanted to ask you about, um, people on the stream probably know about you,
Mhm.
but I remember in the early days you were like just such an advocate and a proponent for Tesla um, back when they were just getting just smeared with all kinds of FUD and
Yeah.
all kinds of crazy stuff. One thing I will say, I think people maybe haven't realized or noticed is like Tesla's the king now. Like Volkswagen is the gum under your shoe, and
Oh
GM
yeah.
and these guys like Tesla's the so. Can you go
Yeah.
back and kind of tell us about like what was it like back then, and how did you get your start? How did your rise to this position that you
Well, I never expected to start talking about Tesla and really about autonomy so much. Um, but nobody else was saying something that seemed really obvious to me. So, it really just started when I got my Model 3. And, I was just kind of going through a shitty time in my life. I just got like out of college and was just really trying to figure things out. And, I got this car. It was really great. It really helped me a lot, like in my life, just to make things easier, make things simpler. And, you know, then I like posted a picture online or something like that of my Tesla, and all these Tesla Q guys are like commenting on it about how Tesla's going to go bankrupt and it's a fraud, all the usual lines. And so I started kind of following these guys and just noticed that they were really just making up a lot of stuff. Which is not to say that there aren't valid criticisms of Tesla. There are, but these were guys who were really kind of trying to exaggerate and memify the situation to make money and to really make money lying to people, right? So you've got some grandma who has, Tesla in her retirement fund, and they're really trying to scare her, thinking, oh, Tesla's going bankrupt, really working closely with the media to push all these just fake stories, to really scare people. And a lot of people probably sold their Tesla. Obviously it went down to like 180. And they lost a big opportunity because of, this misinformation that was being put out. So, originally it was just kind of like, here's the real information about like what's going on with Tesla from someone who's using this product. And showing that like, a lot of this information that's being put out is bullshit. It was just total bullshit. And time proved that, in fact, Tesla didn't go bankrupt. They're now, the most valuable car maker in the world. And I do think that, like, we as Tesla customers, fans, people who love Tesla, Tesla shareholders, it's like you said, it's a very different time. It's not like in 2018 when really Tesla was at a make or break moment. If things had gone a little more badly, yeah, they could have gone bankrupt. It could have been the end of the company. They could have had to sell to somebody else or shut down or something. There were a lot of bad outcomes. And I think that's what, kind of made people really, and a lot of people love Tesla. They love their cars. And they were upset that, a lot of this misinformation was being pushed and still is that kind of threatened Tesla's future. But now we're in a very different time. Everyone's saying, oh, Volkswagen may be able to catch up to Tesla by 2025. I mean, what a difference a year makes, right? From this company's going bankrupt, like, oh, trust me, the company's going bankrupt, to, oh, the biggest car company in the world may be able to catch them in 5 years. So, I definitely think, everyone should have a little bit more of a sense of humor. I think people do kind of like, there is kind of like this reputation that, like, okay, you say something about Tesla and there's going to be kind of like an angry mob coming for you with pitchforks. And I don't think that's really like a great thing, or just kind of like, getting angry at journalists or whatever, which, like probably I was like one of the people who was like doing this the most in terms of like saying like this journalist is full of shit or whatever. Um, but, I think in general, like, people should be happy that like we won and be more gracious like to other people's opinions and things like laugh, not take things so hard anymore. Things are going really great. Like if I could look back then when things looked so bleak and I was really like you worried sometimes like, man, what's going to happen, like is this company I love going to survive? And to see just all the amazing products they're putting out, the fact that I've been using like FSD for 5 months now and it really came true, and it didn't end up being bullshit. And, probably some people still think it's bullshit because they haven't gotten it yet. But, the things are really going really well. They're making a ton of electric vehicles. You look at the Mach E from Ford, it's a great electric vehicle. It's not the kind of ugly, shitty car that you saw before. The whole industry has changed. The Model 3 changed the whole industry forever. And, it's really important now that everybody's making electric cars. And it's a really, really great thing. No matter what happens to Tesla, even if they went bankrupt tomorrow, they've made a permanent mark on the industry and really transformed things for the better. So, I couldn't be happier. And there's still a lot of misinformation, a lot of people, speaking out against FSD and all that. But, I think everyone should be pretty happy with how things are going generally.
Yeah, yeah. So I felt the same way. In 2018, I made a video on like the true cost of owning a Tesla Model 3. And I remember it was like it was really one of the videos that made my channel, or took my channel to where it is today. But it had like 2 million views. And I compared it to a 3 Series BMW, which everyone thought of. They thought, yeah, obviously this is going to be one of the cars that people trade in. But the other car I used, and I wanted to kind of show people, like, guys, like this car, because of how cheap it is to operate, will shock you. And I used a Honda Civic. And I remembered a year later, or a year later after that, Tesla announced the cars that were most commonly traded in to get a Model 3. And both those cars were on that list. So the 3 Series that I mentioned and
There
the
you
Honda
go.
Civic
Your
was
video
on
did
that
the
list.
trick.
But I mean, it just kind of showed, and I wanted to kind of like show people, I have 22,000 miles now on my 15-month-old car. I've spent like $30 getting the tires rotated, and I have no plans
Yeah.
of doing anything else anytime soon.
Yeah.
The other day, we lost our key card, and I was able to lay in bed and remote open so that people could get into the car, remote start, so they had 2 minutes to start the car, and they were able to drive. I mean, it's like, forget all of that. Like in the Mach-E you mentioned, the things that still bug me about some of these EVs, and I love the Mach-E. I thought it was a great car. I've had a chance to drive it. There's still a start button, and there's a whole like initiation process. Like, what is this? There's no
Yeah.
engine. Just get in and go. In my car, in my Tesla, open the door,
They're
sit
learning
down,
slowly.
foot on the
They
brake,
got some work to
go.
go, but
They
yeah.
do. I think what it requires is like shedding all that legacy crap, because we don't need any of it anymore. Really, a lot of that stuff. It's just get in and go. And when you're done, I don't even put it in park. I just open the door. The car automatically goes in park, and I'm done. My driving is done. It's just so quick. It's just these little day-to-day things that people lose
Yeah.
track of. Switching gears a little bit, one of the things that I think has happened is the Tesla community is like one of the most loyal communities anywhere. If you don't believe me, check out any promotional
Oh yeah.
ad for like another car company. Like look at a BMW ad where it'll be like, share a picture of your favorite BMW, and it'll be a bunch of like Tesla fans with like BMWs on fire making fun of them constantly. And
Yeah.
it's at the
I
point now. I
that
used to think it was
picture.
really funny,
Oh
but
yeah.
now it's kind of, oh man, I feel bad for like how do you they're trying to be hip on social media, and they're getting buried with this stuff. But one
Yeah,
of
I
the
mean, I
things,
think Tesla's earned their loyalty. Like I had a BMW too, and it's just amazing like how affordable these cars are. If you look at just the amount you save on gas from if you drive a lot, it's just like no brainer. This is like a super affordable car that has like autopilot and all these great features. Most people don't realize that. When I was like Uber driving around, most people are like, "Oh, this car's like $100,000, right?" Not at all. It's like Honda, Toyota pricing in terms of affordability.
yeah, exactly. And I remember I had a BMW as well. They were fine until you had to take it to the shop. And I was saving to buy a house when I was younger, about 10 years ago, and I had a 330 Ci, and it had some little thing. I thought, oh, it'll be $500. It was like a $2,800 repair. I had to get a battery cost $380, and I put it on sale and I got rid of it that week. I was like, this car is a terrible idea. If I ever want to buy a house or have any kind of wealth, this thing is like my greatest, and I got rid of it. I would never
Yeah.
buy a gas car again for this reason. Like if I needed to buy like a van for some, if there was some specialty used affordable little old gas car, maybe I might buy one. But short of that, any car I buy would be electric because I'm not dealing with that stuff anymore. There's no
It's
way I
so
would.
true. It is so true. And really, if you drive a gas car, your whole, expense is really like at the mercy of the king of Saudi Arabia. It's like how many barrels of oil does he want to pump, and what does he decide you're going to pay, and that's how much you have to pay him because you got to get where you're going. You don't have a choice. It's like more people definitely need to realize like in a few years it's going to be that the sticker price on a gas car and an EV is the same, but most people probably don't realize if you drive any amount, an EV is like if you care about accumulating wealth and having a controllable budget, it's so far ahead for an EV.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So I will say, switching gears a little bit, one of the reasons I think I brought this up about the community is there's also a little bit in my mind, maybe misinformation on the other side as well. Like I saw this little Twitter debate, and I don't know if I responded to this one or not. I weigh in a little bit. I weigh in on some of your stuff. You hear me, and you respond. We have fun. This one was pretty much saying that like your Tesla is going to be worth like double what it is today when you get FSD in 2 years because it's a robo taxi, and I'm just like thinking, the reality is Tesla will never make cars as terrible as these. Like imagine 5 years from now they're going to make cars that are
Right.
like going to blow your mind. Our cars are going to feel your car is not going to be worth more money if you're making decisions on these ridiculous claims from like the hyper fanboys in the Tesla community. Please don't. Like there's no real. I mean, if they get the robo taxi thing figured out, but you got to remember too, they'll be making 2 million cars maybe in 3 or 4 years. So there's gonna. These are things you got to really weigh in and make decisions about on your own because I feel like there's so much excitement that potentially it could turn to um,
Yeah.
misinformation on its own. And also, I hope that everybody can agree that Tesla's mission is to accelerate the world's future. It's not to crush the world or have every automaker kneeling under their feet. It's to accelerate the transition. So they're doing it in a major way. Volkswagen is talking about like shutting down lines. They already are. They're converting over plants. I think you've expressed some doubt about the 6 plants that they're battery manufacturing plants that they're producing. Warren, I believe, mentioned that even the 6 plants combined is like a gigafactory Austin, maybe, and plus Berlin. But the point is like they are investing in it. So I'm hoping that we can not turn into the enemy of progress that we were fighting 4 years ago, but continue to say, look, VW, you've done horrible stuff. We're sick of all your BS, but hopefully you go and do what you say and you build an ID4 that some people will buy. Because if that happens and they're not building a gas car, that's better for us. That means there's gonna be more charging infrastructure. There's going to be more like battery recycling. Somebody mentioned
Yeah.
in the chat about if there's major autonomous vehicles, are we going to have a huge recession in 10 years from job loss from mechanics and smog inspectors and stuff? But I don't think so because imagine all the potential opportunities with like battery recycling. My wife and I are getting in touch with some companies in that space to talk battery recycling in a future video. But that's going to be a huge industry. When there's so many EVs and there's so many battery packs already out there that it would make more sense to recycle that than go mine new material. That becomes the full closed loop dream that I think Elon's always had. And so there's opportunities that will arise. But it happens when we have more people taking it seriously. And I think we're starting to your point that Tesla's or somebody in the chat mentioned they're bringing these guys kicking and screaming if they want to or not.
Yeah.
But you realize
Yeah,
quickly you
definitely.
can't compete. I mean, you're not going to compete with a Model 3 if you have a gas engine. You're just going to be too slow and too inefficient and too and cost too much.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely important to stay grounded and stay humbled. I wouldn't give anyone like financial advice like, hey, don't sell your car for, $50,000 today because it's going to be worth $200,000 to you in the future. I mean, I think there is a possibility if autonomy works out and you live in a major city where your car can go out and make money and your car doesn't fall apart and the battery doesn't go to shit and the regulatory, it's a lot of ifs really. So there is like a possibility, but you have to like be realistic about uh, the chances of all these things and what the time frame is going to be. Um, I think in general, you're exactly right. Like, you know, people like to talk smack. It's kind of like sports in a way, right? Like everybody has their team. You like the Red Sox or you like the Yankees, and you're going to talk shit about the other team. But really, like the reality is like it's great. I mean, this is the whole. Tesla was originally started as a publicity stunt, right? Never in a million years did they imagine that they're actually going to be making millions of cars. The whole idea was that we're going to just show with this roadster that you can make an electric car. And this is going to convince the other automakers who actually have the capability to make millions of cars to do it. So this was really the idea from the beginning, to convince everyone that electric cars are so much better. We better get in on electric cars fast, or this is a threat to our long-term existence. And that is exactly what's happened. And it's super, super exciting to see that happening, and to see Volkswagen say, yeah, we're going to put out a lot of electric car models. So like, I may give them shit and say, okay, their production isn't on the same level as Tesla, but like, it's great. And you look at, say, the ID4, much less ugly than the ID3. And so,
That
there
is a
is
huge
progress.
compliment. If anyone who knows Omar, that's like
Yeah, I
the
mean, I
highest
think the
praise.
software on the car is terrible, but
It
like,
is.
the reality is like, I mean, there's a difference between like, kind of like talking smack and what I really believe. And what I really believe is like, this is really great. There's a lot of kind of in the media now, like, oh, Tesla's in trouble, Volkswagen's coming, Ford is coming, they've got competition, they're not going to be able to sell as many cars anymore. And I just kind of laugh at this because it's
Yeah.
like, this was the idea,
Yeah,
right?
I will.
And
I
this
will
is
say,
not a
don't
winner's.
get too worked up by that because 3 years ago in 2018, it was FUD and it was like they're trying to bury Tesla. Now it's embarrassing. Like that's what
Yeah,
happens when you're the king. When you're the king, people want your and your crown, and you can't go after every one of these jokers because it's embarrassing at some point. Like it's not even worth the Tesla's time to like comment
yeah,
on some of this
definitely.
stuff. It's like, come on,
I
are
mean,
you
I
kidding me? Have
definitely
you
agree
touched
that like,
94 screen and try to use it? It'll drive you nuts. Like my 2012 Honda Pilot is, it's not
yeah.
it's not innovative by any means, but I don't have any of those delay issues and stuff. It's bonkers
Yeah, I mean,
how
Volkswagen's a great automaker, but they've got a lot to learn with software and
they
stuff.
do.
And I think the bottom line is like, I just kind of laugh at these narratives that like, oh, the competition's coming, Tesla's in trouble, other people are making EVs. I mean, people have been saying this forever, but this is not a winner take all situation. This is not a zero sum game. This is a game where we actually benefit from having more people make EVs. If it was just that there was only EVs, it might be a different story. But right now, it's all the EVs together against the gas cars. And
Yeah,
every Mustang Mach E, every ID4, every Chevy Bolt, that puts more chargers in mall parking lots, that,
exactly.
it accelerates the supply chain. This is really good for everybody. And, if your neighbor sees you driving a Mustang Mach E and you say, oh, yeah, I got this EV, it's great. I've saved so much money on gas. There's chargers all over the place. This word of mouth, all the other companies advertising. Tesla doesn't advertise. Volkswagen's putting up billboards. They're taking out Super Bowl ads. All of these things are helpful in what our real goal is, which is making people decide to buy an EV instead of a gas car. And maybe they'll get a Ford, maybe they'll get a Volkswagen, but once they're in the EV camp, they'll be looking at Teslas too next time. And I think that's really, really important. Like you look at what happened with iOS and Android. Android came, and did that kill the iPhone? No, actually, the Android sells way more phones than Apple does. Apple only, I think, has like 20% market share or something like that. But they're making more money than anybody on the high end of the market. and Android actually made the market bigger. Like you think of something like Uber. If only the iPhone existed and Android didn't exist, could you have a business like Uber? Well, you would only have 20% of the user base because a lot of people wouldn't be able to afford the $1,000 Apple phone. But now with Android, where you have 4 times as many people using Android, and you can now make an app that works on iOS and Android, it expands the market. It made the market for apps bigger, right? Like Steve Jobs was really pissed when Android came. He's like, we're going to go thermonuclear on Android, fuck them. But really, the idea that every phone became a smartphone rather than having like flip phones and Apple, that really expanded the total addressable market for smartphones. Exactly. And I think about it the same way with EVs. Like I'm really excited seeing Volkswagen say, hey, we're going to make 500,000 EVs this year. I'm like, hell yeah, do it. Go make 1 million. Like push harder. There is no bad amount of EVs that you can make. Like the more the better, the faster the better. And like if the other industry wants to like talk smack, but as long as they're doing it, this is what really is important, making a ton of EVs.
Yeah, that's really well said. I think that sentiment is exactly how I feel. To your analogy about the Red Sox and the Yankees, the difference is if you're a Yankees fan, the Red Sox win. MLB made a ton of money. They all make money on merchandising. It's a team. Yeah. It's a team effort. In the EV race, if you're poo-pooing on everything from VW and GM, and you're all Tesla, the problem is your air is still going to suck, and you're still going to get lung cancer because one brand of car is not going to do anything. Like all my neighbors, I'd say 9 out of 10 of them don't have Teslas. So it's going to be a very
lung cancer doesn't care what brand of EV it is.
So when anybody's trying something with an EV, and if they try to go after Tesla, I think what we have to remember now is Tesla's the king. So all these other little jokers, you should try to it's almost like take pity on them. Like if VW has some article like they're doing this, like, oh, that's cute, good for you, VW. Like come see us when you have 240 gigawatt hours of capacity a year or something. But the key really is, we have to think of it as when all of our cars are electric, that's when the earth starts to clean up our act. And it doesn't really work if it's us versus them kind of a thing. At the same time, to your point, the team part of it, I get it. Like, I'm Team Tesla, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But hopefully give them a chance. Give companies a chance to, Rivian's coming online, Lucid's supposed to come online. Give these guys a chance to see what they do. And of course, there's going to be some controversies as well, but
yeah, I mean, in general, it's a really good thing. Everyone's making EVs. It's really good to see for the industry and just for everybody. Like everybody really wins. And the controversy really like sells the papers. So
it does.
People really like they drum up these controversies just to get people talking and all of that. But I think I'm really I'm pretty confident that Tesla's going to continue to be able to make EVs that are, maybe not the best in every aspect. Maybe somebody's going to have an EV that's better in some area than a Tesla, but they've got some really powerful differentiating factors. When you look at the new battery technology they're putting into the cars in Berlin and Austin, cell vehicle integration, the 4680, just some of these products.
8,000-ton press for the Cybertruck.
The casting, the autopilot. Like, I feel really good about, Tesla being able to differentiate themselves really well. And I feel, confident in that. And I think, they're going to keep making the best cars, but other people are going to make a lot of really good cars too. And a lot of people are going to be happy with a lot of different brands. And it's going to be a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. So I'll kind of close with this final kind of idea, which is I keep thinking of Tesla turned the page in the past. I don't know exactly what the date was, but they went from everyone's trying to kill them to, holy crap, how are we going to catch them? It happened so quickly, and they've completely, to your point, disrupted the thought of like how you build cars. Like Toyota and Honda, I don't know what they're doing. It's bizarre, but So that is cool. But I think when you turn that corner and you become the king, I think it's also really important to be critical. So you might see here on this video, this live stream was brought to you by Jetta. Jetta makes some really awesome Tesla products. They're friends of the show. We chat on Twitter all the time.
Love
really
I actually have the Jetta products too. Yeah, they're great. I got their hub.
Yeah.
And the other great product they had was the
The
what
wireless
was it? It was
charger,
the
the
hub.
hub.
Oh yeah, the wireless charger. That's the other
Yeah.
thing I use. Now it's built into the new Teslas, but way
Right.
back in the day when you had those wires, that was like the first thing I bought, like the wireless charging pad. Huge life upgrade
Yeah.
to
It was
get
a
that versus the
fantastic thing.
wire.
The hub, and then they have an SSD for your dash cam footage. And finally,
Yeah,
the new thing
hide
they
your
have is a
SSD.
yeah, exactly. And they have a tray, which is their new product that they sent me a copy, and I've had a chance to use it. What's really awesome, you said you road trip. I have kids, so we'll pass around AirPods because the kids and their ridiculous music like will drive you nuts after a while. So we kind of
Right.
take turns like who's got AirPods on, and now it'll charge your AirPods in the tray. It's really cool. And their
Yeah.
products look like Tesla made it. If I showed you my car, you would not even think anything in here is like aftermarket.
Oh
Best thing I
yeah.
can say about Jetta. But they had it. No,
Super well designed. The other
yeah,
thing I like about Jetta Hub is it's got USB-C ports on it. So if you've got the old
yes,
USB-A car, it'll add
yes.
some USB-C ports
Yeah,
in.
exactly. That's a good point. So great products. 2020 was rough for companies, especially small companies. So definitely, if you're looking for some of those accessories, use our code for a little savings as well, and support cool, awesome businesses. Which is my tie-in to something I want to bring up, which is how do you feel about Tesla going after some of these guys like Abstract Ocean over like infringing on their name and their copyrights and stuff? To me, this kind of again, it kind of feels like what happens when you become really, really huge and powerful. Something I didn't think that they didn't really, I mean, they really didn't do it in the past. Is
Mhm.
it something that worries you? Do it seem like they're kind of,
Well, obviously I support Abstract Ocean in general. I think the small business, like these guys, it's really tough to run a small business. So definitely support small businesses, support these people who are making great Tesla products for us. Um, but like this was probably something that the lawyers came up with. Like this is what lawyers do. They're just assholes. And there's reasons why. I think by law, like if you don't protect your intellectual property, you can lose it. So like somebody could infringe on your trademark and they could say, well, look, they're letting these guys do it or something like that. So I think there's like some legal reason. I mean, a lot of the times you see kind of like the lawyers do one thing, like they say like, hey, you can't film a drone here, or like there have been various times where like the lawyers have kind of like put the hammer down on like the Tesla or SpaceX community, and then like they kind of like bring it to Elon's attention or something, and he's like, well, I don't care, go fly the drone over or whatever. Um so I mean, I kind of think of it as a situation like that where like the
yeah.
lawyers were like, hey, okay, we're going to do this thing for some legal reason which I probably don't understand. But like I think in general, like Tesla understands that like they don't advertise. It's really like the community. It's people
And
who are just
it's been their
passionate
biggest
talking about
strength.
this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, who are just listening to us talk about Tesla, who are buying these products. I mean, to think about like to create a business and be like, hey, I'm going to make Tesla products. Like Vincent's like Tasmanian or Abstract Ocean or Jet or like all these companies making Tesla products. I mean, I hope Tesla realizes that these companies are so important, and um, we don't want to accidentally be like sending our lawyers on them. We want to be like really supporting them and helping them out. So I hope like uh, it'll all get resolved without being like too much of an issue for them.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I think it's important to be able to criticize Tesla. There's always things they could do better. Um, there's a lot of things they could do better, and it's important to get that feedback out. And like people shouldn't be like scared that like I'm going to express my opinion on this and people are going to get mad at me. Like everyone has their opinion. It doesn't mean you're right or whatever. It's just like you're expressing your opinion, and there's always room to do better. And like hopefully that they can work this out and like make sure it's all good, and they're really supporting these companies that are risking their livelihoods to really
Right.
like make great products for Tesla.
Yeah, the way I see this is, Tesla is a massive company. Elon's involvement, I mean, he can't be in charge of everything. And he's even mentioned,
Yeah.
I don't think his involvement in Tesla is going to last for too many more years because at some point that they're going to be such a juggernaut that it'll be in place and he can go in other ventures and stuff.
Well, I
So
mean,
at
even
that point,
today, like there's huge teams running this. It's kind of
yeah,
weird. people like think about like Elon, but this guy's like launching rockets. He's doing
Right.
all this stuff. There's
Right.
like really, and I give the teams, like the teams at Tesla really deserve like a lot more credit.
Yeah.
There's like really, really smart people getting these things done.
Yeah. So I completely agree with you. That's why I've always felt the need to make sure, like, the next step, which is now you're the king. How do you become better? And better is more criticism or feedback. I mean, in positive, constructive ways. Like, for example, my Model 3 I got in 2019, end of 2019, was fantastic. The panel gaps and stuff were superb. My car was like this golden boy. It was
Yeah.
perfect. And I thought
Mhm.
to myself, great, 2019, they've got this all under control. One of my friends who used my referral link, he got one recently. It has the new center console update and stuff in the Model 3. And his panel gaps were all over the place. And I was thinking, man, honestly, if this was my car, I might have been tempted if I wasn't like waiting and too excited to turn it back. I might have rejected it because it was that bad.
Mhm.
So, like, stuff like this, they got to figure out now. Like, we're talking about improvements in a single casting for the Cybertruck backend.
Oh
That's all
yeah.
great, but you got to clean this up. Like Porsches aren't doing this. VW's cars don't come out like that. Make fun of the ID3 or the ID4. There aren't like panel gaps are like really consistent. So I think first of all, Tesla's kind of they're trying to do so much. Like they're trying to make a self-driving car that they're kind of skipping over or stumbling over some of the littler things like get this kind of stuff because really it's not really a quality issue. I don't think my car is unreliable. I think my car will outlast all these gas cars from Porsche in terms of like being electric powertrain. But there's that perceived quality. So like invest in that. Other things are like Tesla Solar. I'm a big referral of Tesla Solar. Solar is one of my favorite things. And so some of the people who've bought solar with Tesla have had a great experience with it. But some of them have had really bad experiences. And I think one of Tesla's greatest weaknesses is the customer service. It is not great. And I've even been through this getting like a free Powerwall. It was like pulling teeth and it was a lot of pain. But they're growing so fast that
Right.
they're so I think maybe what they probably need to do is kind of slow down a little bit. And with like solar glass roof installations coming up,
Mhm.
maybe work with installers a little more. Like I know they want to build their team and be vertically integrated, but like pick regions at a time, grow, invest in training, and make sure it scales up nicely as opposed to like a world domination scheme that is leaving a lot of people falling through the cracks. Because like there's laws and there's like you got to get a permit from your utility and the state. Like solar is a tricky thing, and you got to make sure that things don't fall through the cracks. Like somebody emailed me because it's been 10 months and they're still not able to get online. And he emailed me like, I'm begging you, Ricky, do you know anybody over there who maybe you could get in touch with me to get my solar finished? Like it's on the roof, it's not finished. He has like holes in his drywall. There's like
Wow.
in the stucco, yeah. And this is not the first at all, by the way. This is quite common experience. Thank you, Gary and Eric Kessler, for you guys' super chats. We really appreciate you guys. Um, Gary has a question we can touch on in a second. But to me, though, like the company that we love, Tesla, I want to see them like just even go to another level. And I think it's in small little things. And we should be a little bit critical because now, as the king, we want to see them just go to the next level. I almost don't even worry about the little silly stories from these joker companies anymore because I think they're that's just below them. But now it's about how do you take the next step to go from this kind of powerhouse electric company to like the dominant manufacturing powerhouse of Earth, which I really think is Elon's goal. I don't think he likes cars that much, to be honest with you. I think he loves manufacturing, and I think they should become like the most powerhouse manufacturing company around.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, we all want Tesla to be just like, Apple level, just like you get it. It's just great products, super great reputation. Like my 2018 Model 3, like yours was really great. In all my family or anything, I've never really gotten a car that's like, so hideously bad or whatever. But the fact is, like, the company has been growing a lot, you know, and whenever you're growing that fast, there's always growing pains. There's always issues like, I haven't personally gotten solar installed, but like you're saying, this person's story. Um, and I mean, these growing pains are things to address, right? So we want to, get the feedback to Tesla, help them make it better. sometimes I think a lot of these things are like really overblown. Like, I don't think really like your average person is really like measuring panel gaps or anything like that, or that, like someone should consider not buying a Tesla because it might have a panel gap or something. Like, some of these latest cars look really great, but they're growing really fast. And the rate of growth sadly is not going to slow down. There's going to be, Berlin and Austin, and more lines in Fremont, just expansion all over the place. So, um, they're really going to have to up their game for sure to be able to deal with all these customers, and do it in a great way while still growing really fast. And I definitely agree with you. Like, it's important to get this feedback. Like, if somebody does have an issue, like let's say you got a car and it was just really bad. There's like not a car that should be delivered, or you have an experience with solar that's not what you expected from Tesla. Really important to like get this feedback out and get it fixed before it happens to someone else. But generally, I think they're pretty
email
good.
or tweet at Omar or myself. We'll try to make sure that whatever little
I'd
stuff comes
also
up,
just like,
while we have the
you
right
can,
contacts.
I think you can also just like, Elon has his Twitter open. He has it, like, it's not hard to find Elon's email. Like, Elon will really respond to random people on his email, or just forward it to the
Right.
right person. So, like, I think everyone really cares about the company and they want them to do well. And, um, if you see something where that kind of thing happens, then like let them know, and get that information out. And they care about this stuff. Like, they want to make people happy. And I definitely like would recommend everyone to like get Tesla products. I want to be able to make that recommendation and not
Exactly.
worry about like them having a bad experience. And I don't, like, I generally am confident in the company to deliver a good experience. But um, any you want it to be even better, like Apple like quality, Apple like support, just the top of the line.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Omar, for joining us today. I had a feeling we'd have a good chat with you. Your insights and stuff, and just how involved you're in the community, I knew would be fantastic. So don't forget to hit like, share this video if you thought other people might watch it who couldn't catch us live. And if you have other people you'd want me to speak with, let me know. And if you want to have us bring Omar back to talk about something else, maybe Starlink, or there's a million things we can talk about. Leave us your comments right now. We'll make sure to try to make that happen. Is there anything else you want to leave us in closing? By the way, I have to. So Jim Bates and a couple of the people in the chat have been talking about a teddy bear. I think it's a teddy bear on your shelf. You wanna share that with us? I'll go to you full screen. Is there something on the other side? No?
I don't know, where is it? I mean, this isn't my room. This is I really don't see this teddy bear, but this, I'm in like my dad's like study room right
Got it.
now. I'm like visiting him in Los Angeles. So if there is a teddy bear,
I think it's like a
uh,
blue shirt.
it's not
It
my
looks like maybe it's probably his, yeah. Well,
teddy. But
there's going to be some great talks that we're going to have in the future. I'll outline some of it, and I'll be sure. And so do you want to talk about your website? And
oh yeah,
let's
well, yeah, homars.com blog, but people, that's not really that important to plug. But just generally, thanks so much. It was great. Love to come on and talk anytime. It's always great to talk about Tesla. I could talk about Tesla forever.
yeah.
And the one thing I'll close with is all the people who are dying waiting for FSD, and they're feeling jaded, and they're like, oh man, it's not coming. Maybe it's not coming until next year. It is coming. I promise you. Like, it really is, I think, closer than you think. And I know it's frustrating. This is like a really critical safety thing. It's important, critical junction for the company. It would be great if they could just release it to everyone. And to some extent, I feel like, hey, I'm using it every day. Why couldn't they just release it to everyone? If I'm using it and it's fine, I haven't gotten in any accident or even close. They could just release it to everyone. They could push the button at any minute and just seed it out. But they're trying to be really careful. And I know that's frustrating for people. But I'd just say, like, hang in there. This is going to come. And I think everyone is going to be really blown away when they see what it's capable of. And I'm just really excited. I think about that day when it gets out there and people start downloading into their car, and just like the internet's just going crazy on like Reddit and Twitter and all that. And people are just like, holy shit, like I just saw this for myself on my car. And I just smile thinking about that day and how much fun it's going to be. Um, and it's really exciting. Like this is such an amazing, exciting time. I'm so happy to see like EVs from like every car company, Porsche, like Audi, like making sexy electric cars, Tesla, just like the Cybertruck, the Semi, the way autopilot's going, the new battery technology. Like, what an exciting time for like people who love to drive, who love fast cars, who love like clean energy. Um, and like this is going to be a really great year. The pandemic is like closing up a little bit. I
I
just got
know.
vaccinated, so a lot of good things coming, and it's going to be exciting. And also just like love the Tesla community, people talking like this, discussing like we have a lot of fun, and everyone just be at peace with each other, be at peace with the other companies and the shorts, and I think it's going to be a good
Ah,
year.
the shorts. Screw the shorts. They can get your wrath.
True, yeah, they don't deserve anything.
Really quick, there was a question about what determines the FSD speed when you're driving down the freeway. I think first of all, a GPS will give you like the speed limit, and then the radar will tell you how far you are from the car in front of you and stuff. And so like safety and maybe visibility,
Yeah,
there's
so
probably some
it
factors
actually
that
reads the
determine,
speed limit signs,
which is
and
so
you can
cool.
actually now set it up to 90 on any
Yeah,
street.
I always
It's
like that.
pretty wild.
I don't know how Tesla is the only company that I feel like there's no lawyers involved. I, I don't see any other company doing that. Like normally in a car, you have to like go through like 20 pages of I agree before I can even turn on the map. Tesla's like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like here you go. Oh, you want to go over the speed limit? Sure, you can do that too.
Yeah, no, it's actually really great, and it kind of is smart. So you can tell it like go 60, and it'll still slow down to like 40 for a curve if it needs to. Like I mean, for so much time, I was just like going really slow because that's what autopilot like forced you to do, and I love using autopilot. And now for the first time with like FSD, you can really go any speed you want, and it is just fantastic. They just added this in the latest beta build. You guys are gonna love it. You're gonna love being able to set it to any speed, and you're gonna love no confirmation for traffic lights. It just goes. It's just really great. It'll put a smile on everyone's face.
Thank you, John, for the super chat. He says, Ricky, give Elon a call and ask him where's my beta button. And this kind of gets to. So, first of all, I didn't want to make this sound like, I'm anti and Omar is for something. I love what they're doing. You're looking at the future and you're looking at the company that is pushing this future forward. Simulation and all that is one thing, but Tesla is going to be the model upon which other companies are going to spring forth. I'm wildly excited. I think my problems were a little more critiques about the overblowing of like what
Yeah,
people think is going to be promised. That I
yeah,
think you got to get kind of temper your expectations. But like Omar said, and also let's let them work. Let's let them do the hard business of writing this code and getting this to work. I honestly think Tesla should probably kind of, and Elon especially, maybe just kind of stop the tweeting about it a little bit. Let's just kind of quietly, because it doesn't do anyone any favors if people are constantly being disappointed, and plus they feel the pressure. This is important stuff. Like, maybe they could, talk about some of the other challenges that they face, and maybe like do little initiatives to improve upon those for a while. And then when FSD is ready, it'll be the coolest day ever. Like we're all gonna lose our minds, and it's gonna be great. But like the day-to-day check-in, it just wears. Even when it's one of those things where even if it's incredible, if you keep thinking about it every day, it'll almost never excite you because
right.
you've been dreaming about it for so long, kind of a thing. So I hope I'm clear. This is going to be super
Yeah, I
cool.
mean,
Omar's
a little
has it.
dose of realism is always good, and like skepticism is good, and it's good to check your assumptions. Like, most people are very skeptical of this, and like skepticism doesn't bother me. Like, it's interesting to discuss, and definitely, I think people should just kind of, try and relax and wait. Like, um, it won't be forever. Just like enjoy, and one day the button will come. We don't have to like count down the days, but like
Yeah.
it won't be that. It really won't be that long. It it's it's something that's going to be good, but like it was definitely not really like that great of a situation where everyone was like getting super excited, like hoping it was really going to come like this weekend, and then getting let down. It's sad to see people let down, especially when like this technology is so incredible. Um, to get disappointed about it. Um, I think hopefully like he will kind of like learn his lesson from that and not be like tweeting out estimates all the time, but just kind of like surprise us with it one day and let the crowd go wild. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that day.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just trying to think of what I could say in closing. Um, do you think? So, I mean, a 10x rollout would be like thousands of people. Is that what they're thinking with maybe 9.0 now, right?
I mean, who the hell knows?
Yeah, yeah.
He kind of
But
just made it
if you
sound
want to
like,
know, if you want to be on the forefront of that, give yourself a day or two break. Take a deep breath, enjoy time with your families, and then follow Omar on Twitter, and you'll know what's up. You'll know exactly the state of where they are.
yep. All right, man.
For sure. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Omar, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We appreciate all of you. And thank you for all the new viewers. I think there's some people who probably joined from you, Omar, as well. So hopefully you'll subscribe and we'll see you around. And we'll catch you guys next week.